Thursday, May 16th, 2019 in session. Can we start with the roll call, please?
Chair Madrid.
Present.
Vice Chair Jenna.
Present.
Board Member Browning.
Present.
Board Member Johnson.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll ask everyone to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda dated Thursday, May 16th, 2019. Would anyone like to discuss this item, or can we have a motion?
Chair, you don't need a motion to approve the agenda. You can just do it procedurally.
Sounds great. I thought I needed one last time, so all right. So no vote, we could just approve the agenda as printed for tonight. Sounds great. Now we will move to the approval of the minutes as our next item on the agenda. These are the minutes for the Board of Adjustment regular meeting dated Thursday, April 18th, 2019. Would anyone like to discuss this item, or can we get a motion on this one? Anyone like to move?
Move to accept the minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got two. So a motion by Vice Chair Jenna and a second by Board Member Browning. At this time, can we please signify our vote on the board using the switch underneath? And we have
Let's turn off the other one.
Yeah, you have one next to you right there.
Thank you.
There we go.
The vote is 4 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is the public comment section of tonight's meeting. This is an opportunity for anyone from the public to comment on general business and or non-agenda related items. If you have comments related to any of tonight's cases, there will be an opportunity to have your comments heard during the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. And we're just going to take a quick look at our sign-in sheet. No names? Okay. So no names on the list. I'll ask one more time if there's anyone in the audience who did not sign in who would like to speak during public comment to please step forward. Seeing that there are none, we'll move forward to general business. Do we have any general business to go over tonight?
There's nothing on the agenda.
Sounds great. So then we will just push right on forward to our public hearing. Tonight we have two cases for our public hearing. Case number VAR 19-0004 and VAR 19-0005. The first is a variance to increase the allowed sign area from 226.67 square feet to 254.56 square feet for a gas station and convenience store located at 1599 West Littleton Boulevard. Is our applicant here tonight?
They are, yes.
I'm sorry?
The applicant is here.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. So we'll begin with a presentation by city staff, followed by comments from our applicants, and then we'll open the floor for anyone who would like to provide comments on this case. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to provide their testimony on this case. Mr. Onsager, whenever you are ready.
I am ready. Thank you very much. This is presenting on behalf of staff for Resolution 04-2019. The request is for 1599 West Littleton Boulevard for an increase in sign area from 226.67 square feet to 254.56 square feet. A quick overview, I will go over the application details, followed by review criteria and analysis, staff's recommendation, followed by board action. So the site is located at the corner of Windermere and Littleton Boulevard on the northeast corner. The site is allowed a total sign area of 226.67 square feet. The proposed reface under the sign permit is requesting an increase that results in 254.56 square feet in total sign area. One of the reasons the site is currently constrained in that square footage is a ground sign where the gas price sign that takes up nearly all of the allowed square footage. I will also note that the sign permit did reduce, so that the signage on the site currently is non-conforming as it exceeds that original or that total allowed square footage. A record of that sign permit was not found upon research. So that sign permit does reduce that nonconformity, but because it is refacing and replacing those signs and is above the allowed square footage, staff denied, which brings us to the variance request in front of you. So the other two, the awning signs on the gas pump area are reduced down to 4.79 square feet, and then the wall sign on the primary building is reduced from 39 square feet to 22.84. The ground sign, like I said, which pushes this site to its max, nearly its max allowed limit, is just being refaced, so it will remain the same square footage. And as an example, this is that ground sign in question, which has 111.07 square feet per display face. So multiplied by 2 gives you the 222 square feet. An example of the proposed awning signs, and then the reduced Circle K sign on the primary structure. So sign permit variations or variances for sign to the sign code are on 4 criteria. The first being that there are no special circumstances or conditions such as topography, location of adjacent buildings, and as such, the other component of this is that the situation is not unique to this is unique to this particular business and not to all other businesses kind of in that area. And so upon staff's review of this criteria, there doesn't seem to be any special circumstances that restrict the effectiveness of that ground sign in particular. And as staff noted in its report, we kind of saw the ground sign as the primary way that attention is drawn to this site. And the other for, the desire for additional square footage is not necessarily unique to this business. It's one that we run into with a number of different sign permits that we ask applicants to revise their sign permits to conform with their allowed total square footage, and they do. So this is one where, again, staff did not find the site unique, other than the very large ground sign. The second criteria, that the variance would be in general harmony with the purposes of this chapter, and specifically would not be injurious to the neighborhood in which the business or enterprise to which the applicant desires to draw attention to be located. So I've discussed this matter with our Public Works Department and our traffic engineers. They don't believe the sign in question, any of them, pose any risks to public health from a traffic standpoint, nor does community development see a reason why these would be particularly injurious. With that said, the sign code does establish limits to the total sign area on sites to limit visual clutter or reduce that and improve aesthetics. And so in some ways, just the asking for above the limit was seen as kind of contrary to that reducing visual clutter. The third criteria is the variance is the minimum, one necessary to permit the applicant to reasonably draw attention to the business or enterprise. Again, staff relied on that ground sign at 222 square feet of total sign area as the primary way this business reasonably draws attention. It's on this site located at the corner of Windermere and Littleton Boulevard, and therefore it has kind of visual sight from kind of all directions. So it's not hidden behind, some other feature. It's pretty prominent. So that's another reason staff found that this criteria wasn't met. So the other signs requested to raise that limit, staff found was above and beyond kind of the minimum necessary to draw attention. And with sign variances requests, all criteria must be met to meet that, and staff found that it didn't meet the first, second, or third in its analysis and assessment. And as such, staff recommends denial of BOA Resolution 04-2019.
Thank you very much, Mr. Onsager. I'll ask anyone on the board if they would have any questions for staff at this time.
I do. Johnson.
Board Member Johnson?
In the particular picture with the pumps, Diamond Shamrock just had a diamond on top. They want Circle K much more. Is this part of this total?
So that is actually exempted from signs considered as part of a site's allowed sign area. So gas pump signs are not in that. I included it because it was included in the applicant's, their application, but it is not part of this request.
Quick question.
Yes.
And maybe I'm just slow on the uptake here, but the existing square footage was 327 plus. Okay, and the proposed is 254. So that's really, in my mind, that's a reduction of the current signage utilization. So we're really, in effect, looking at a smaller signage, utilization for that site. So the other question I've got is that what's the basis for? I mean, we looked at our current requirements for signs, and I mean, it looks like we're moving towards in the right direction with regard to the types of signage that the community really wants, with regard to having a smaller signage area and kind of community visual contamination here. So it would seem to me that we're really moving in the right direction here, by at least something like about 70 square feet, going smaller. So are there other gas stations that have get closer to that the requirements that we've set by the city council?
So other gas stations have come into conformance, and I did want to just note that this is moving closer to that conforming number, although because it does still exceed that total allowed, staff couldn't approve it administratively. But I think it is worth noting that they are trying to get as close as they can. As far as other gas stations, I did not include that in my research, but I am sure that the Diamond Shamrock was not the only non-conforming site, gas station or otherwise, for allowed square footage. But this is when you do reface a sign versus replace a sign, that kind of changes the the nature of what we can approve when it is non-conforming as a total site.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions for staff. In the analysis part of the staff report, there's a statement that says, "The city has allowed applicants to reface signs in non-conforming sign cabinets or structures in accordance with section 101773 of the LCC that addresses non-conforming signs." Why does this sign not meet those qualifications, and why are they here for a variance?
Absolutely. So the ground sign itself, so a sign is allowed up to 100 square feet per display face. And as you note, the ground sign is 111 square feet. So per our code, that is a non-conforming sign. And under 10-17, the non-conforming section, those signs are allowed to reface rather than requiring them to be replaced when they do not, when the reface or the replacement would cost more than 50%. So it basically falls under similar considerations of our other non-conforming section of the code. And because these are, sometimes $15,000, $20,000, it doesn't meet that cost threshold to make them take this down and then bring that into the 100 square foot per display face conformity.
So because the cost of replacing the existing sign would be more than 50% of the existing value of the sign?
I believe that's how the formula works out, but yeah.
So that's the trigger to needing a variance to go over the...
So the variance itself is not for this sign. We would allow them to reface this at its current square footage. The variance is in effect to allow all of the other 3 signs, so the 2 awning signs and the wall sign, on top of their ground sign.
So they're going over their total square footage for the site as well as a singular ground sign as well?
Yeah, so the ground sign itself is not part of this variance. They don't need a variance to reface this sign, other than to, if it doesn't, conform in some aspect of, like, the price sign needs to be 25 square feet.
Okay, so this has been considered a non-conforming sign that they can reface due to the code?
Due to the code, exactly.
Due to the overage of the overall site, that's why they're here for the variance?
Exactly.
Perfect, thank you so much. Another one, the diagram that you have up right now shows a 27-foot height. Is that part of the non-conformance as well, because there's a 25-foot height max for the sign as well?
That would, again, fall under the non-conforming, because
Perfect.
the replacement would be, was not enough to trigger.
Sounds great. And then one last question on the content of the sign. Is there anything in the code regarding the regulation of the content of the sign and what it has to show? Or can it, is it a content neutral?
We do have a content neutral code
2015,
to comply with Supreme Court rulings.
Right.
So the only content that we really can regulate on this particular set is the size of the gas price sign, but everything else is content neutral.
Great. Board Member Browning.
Yeah, quick question, if I did my math right. So if you had the 222.14 on the existing ground sign and your cap is the 226.67, that's about 4.5 square feet.
Correct.
Was there any discussion with the applicant regarding what they would like to do with that 4.5 square feet if the board decided to limit it to the allowable size, total size?
The applicant, I think, is willing to speak to that.
Okay.
I will say that this sign permit has gone through several iterations to bring it down to the current level of 254 square feet. So it was other versions that were a bit higher than that. And, that we have communicated that the option is kind of without the variance to just have that 4 foot, 4.5 foot
Okay.
additional one sign.
Question for you, Johnson. The difference is about 15.5 square feet then, between basically what they can actually get by with as far as what's stipulated. And they're about 15.5 square feet over. Is that about right?
From the 200 and, about 20, yeah.
So they just kind of have to shave that 15 square feet, and then they're in good shape, right?
If they brought it down to comply with their max allowed sign area, then they wouldn't have needed the variance.
That's like the sign on the front of the building and the wash, or which ones are, that's, what, the front of the building?
Yeah, so the 4 total,
Oh, and the signs up above, okay.
Yep.
That's what would make that up, if they could reduce that. Might make it.
Does anyone else on the board have any other questions for staff? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Allensager.
Thank you.
This time we call the applicant up for any presentation, or if they would like to speak on their behalf on this case.
Good evening. I'm Lisa, representing Circle K.
Excuse me, could you state your full name, please?
I'm sorry, Lisa Marie Croston.
Thank you.
I think that, the Circle K has done quite a bit to try to come down to the current signage and doesn't have a lot of control over, what's there without reducing, putting in a new sign or reducing maybe some of the panels. When I was looking back at it, and the 222.14 square feet, I think we need to reduce by the 1702, which would be deducted from the display, because isn't the gas displayed isn't calculated in the square footage of the monument or the pole sign. Because before we were calculating the entire sign, the existing sign, and I was just questioning whether we can deduct out the fuel displays to reduce the size of the signage.
The total of the, that ground sign was calculated based on all sign area on that sign. And so, including the gas sign, which was determined to be part of that display phase.
Oh, they do that. Okay, that's, I was just trying to clarify that. I apologize for not asking that earlier. Yeah, I think that, that Circle K is just trying to bring up the appearance of the gas station. They have substantially reduced what was originally, proposed to try to come down on the, and leaving 4 feet is not a very, give them much to even put a wall sign, on the building. So they're just requesting, a little bit of difference in the signage to allow them to kind of, comply with what their branding is throughout all the Circle Ks. Because we've done 80 sites so far, and they all have canopies if they have gas, and wall signs on the storefront. And some have monument signs or pole signs, but some don't. But it's pretty in compliance with what their branding is. So I think that's, what they're trying to stick with. So that's all I really have to say.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Would anyone on the board have any questions for our applicant?
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
Okay.
Vice Chair Jenna.
Purpose for putting up signs and having signage and stuff like that is to both identify the product as well as also provide some advertisement with regard to the
Thank you.
The product that's there. Is there any concern from you with regard to being inadequate or not adequate with regard to being able to viably have a business with adequate advertisement?
Well, let me look at this one.
Or identity of the product?
So one of the things is, if you look at the pylon sign, it just has their logo on it. And if you go to the building signage, it has the name Circle K on it, which gives you more information than if you weren't to identify with that logo specifically. Then you'd be able to know based on the building signage that it is a Circle K, if you're not familiar with the branding of the logo.
the signage adequately provides the business impact that it needs.
It is a Circle K. If you're not, familiar with just the logo by itself.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. So I was looking through your application for the variance request, and under the Littleton City Code, a variance cannot be granted unless all of the following conditions are met, and staff went over the 4 conditions that would need to be met for the Board of Adjustment to approve your variance request. The first one being that there are special circumstances or conditions such as the existence of buildings, topography, vegetation, sign structures, or other matters on adjacent lots or within the right-of-way, which would substantially restrict the effectiveness of the sign in question. And then the response on the application was, with refacing of existing monument sign square footage currently allowed, would not allow for building gas canopy or pump toppers to be changed to current brand. How is this request meeting the special circumstances requirement of this request?
Well, first of all, I was new at filling this out. It was my first time.
It's okay.
So I was probably a little bit undereducated on the verbiage to respond to that exact question.
So,
So,
if you'd like the opportunity to, at this time, for the board?
yeah. So, let me find it real quick. That portion of it. So I think that, I feel that, like I said, if they were not able to put any signage on their building, it doesn't really show what the entire, Circle K is. It shows, they have the logo on the pylon sign, but there is nothing that references it's a Circle K business. And with allowing only a 4-foot sign, you're talking about, 2 by 3 foot or a 2 by 2 foot sign to try to write Circle K for anybody to be able to identify that is the name of the business on the building.
So, so another question, the ground sign that's in, it doesn't seem to be the issue of this variance because it's already a non-conforming sign at 111 feet. The third requirement is that the variance is the minimum one necessary to permit the applicant to reasonably draw attention to his business or enterprise. How is a sign that already exceeds the code because it's non-conforming not be able to reasonably draw attention to the site with the additional signage that you're requesting on the site?
Well, like I said, it's, it isn't able to convey the entire business name. It just is their logo on that big sign.
Okay. Do any of the other board members have any other questions for the applicant?
Yes.
Yes. Board Member Johnson.
Yeah, is the Circle K, the word circle, and then the circle with the K, is that going to only be on the front of the building?
Is it what?
Is that only going to be on the front of the building, or is it going to be in other locations?
The Circle K is only going to be on the front of the building. And then they are proposing the logos on the gas canopies, but I think that they would, like to have it, they could forego that, considering that the pylon sign is so big right there on the corner, and reduce those to, no logos on the canopy, as long as they could allow, maybe a building sign to be able to identify that as a Circle K in full wording as their brand.
Is that logo on the side of the canopies part of this total?
It's part of the scope, yes.
Part of the total, the overall package?
Yeah.
So if they just had a K in the circle and threw off the rest of it, you might make the quota as far as square foot?
Well, I'm sorry.
If you only had the K in the circle on
Right.
the canopies and then say Circle K, would that get you under the footage?
Under the square footage? No, because that's what we're requesting right now. The logos they've reduced, they have a certain branding, so they have standard sizes, and she's reduced it to one of the smallest logos for canopies, and one of the smaller signs for a building. And like I said, I think that she would forego the request for the canopy, and with being able to stick with the building signage.
In that case,
That's only a
you'd get under the
reduction.
number then. If you
Pardon?
If you forego that, you get under the number.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out.
I think the ones on the canopy only have the circle on the K.
Yeah, it's only got the circle.
So that's
Right, yeah.
a reduction of 9.5 feet. If we forego the logos, which still, I believe, we are over on.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Croston?
Yeah, one last question. There looks like there's an additional enclosure with regard to the, I guess, the protective fence that's in place right now, and it's going to be painted. Is there going to be a color that is going to be unique to Circle K, or is it just going to be something that's going to be something neutral that would go well with the landscape?
Oh, on the car wash. Are you talking about the car wash?
Both car wash as well as, I think I've got a picture here.
A number on that?
Yeah, it's right there.
On the additional enclosure page.
Right,
Oh, the gas,
Vice Chair Jenna is referring to.
oh, the trash enclosure?
right.
Yeah, no, that'll just be repainted the same color as existing.
Okay, so you're not going to try to make that red like the Circle K or?
No, they haven't proposed that on this location.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Croston? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Seeing that the board has no further questions for our applicant, I will now open the public comment for case number VAR 19-0004 open at 7:02 p.m. This evening. And looking at our list, we have one name on our list, so I'll call Pam Chadbourne up for public hearing comment on this case. If you could please state your name.
Good evening, Board of Adjustment. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here. I grew up in Littleton, and so I, have a sense of Littleton Boulevard for what that's worth. I'd like to thank the staff for reading our code and making a recommendation based on our code, and that's what I'd like you to follow through with for a few reasons. I'm going to mention this, although I think an attorney would say you can't consider it. We have a Littleton Boulevard survey going on for mid-century modern value on the area. And the signs on this building are modern and decrease the aesthetics of the corridor, in my opinion. Just letting them be bigger it hurts that objective for our city. And also, this is a very prominent corner, so you really can't avoid signs on this corner. For a long time, we've seen that the signs call attention to the business adequately. I mean, the existence of Diamond Shamrock has proven that. And so, even though this reduces the size, it's still not in conformance with our code. Other gas stations, I'm sure, conform. I'm sure Circle K has encountered this in other locations, and they can handle it. If anybody can, a Circle K franchise must have options for even smaller displays. I'm sure, the upper crust cities have very constrained advertising requirements, and they limit it. If the applicant could reduce the size of the pylon, the non-conforming pylon size, and give themselves more space, I think they could. What I saw in there was their advertising the car wash and other stuff, so they could take that off and still be fine, I think. I think they have options. I think they have a lot of options. They could conform to our code, and I'd like them to do that. I'd like you to ask them to do that. And as staff pointed out, you only get the option or the opportunity to get signs to conform every few decades sometimes, and this is our opportunity. And you know what? The rules of the game are clear to everyone. 42 seconds. We have the right to ask this of everyone on the corridor. And I'm going to point out and ask you, I'm going to plead with you, do not allow creeping violations. Because it's one, and then the next, and then the next, and then somebody comes in and says, but look, all these other ones are different, and gee, I'm at a disadvantage, and it's very difficult for a city to fight that. Please hold the line here. Planning Commission has violated our Sycamore Street front setbacks, and pretty soon it's changed from 18 to 11 on its way to 9. Don't give in. Just enforce the rules for everyone, please, for the good of the city.
Thank you very much. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Ms. Chadbourne? Seeing none and there are no other names on the list, I will ask one more time if anyone else in the audience would like to speak during the public hearing portion of this case tonight. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this case at 7:06 p.m. At this time, we'll begin the discussion of this case, adding any general comments for the benefit of other board members, or to give the opportunity to the board to ask any additional questions to either the applicant or staff. If anyone would like to start. I can start if we'd like. So I'd like to thank our applicant for being here tonight. I'd like to thank for our citizens for being in attendance tonight at our hearing. What I will say about variances in the city of Littleton and variances throughout the state of Colorado is that there are specific requirements that an applicant must meet in order for a Board of Adjustment to be able to vote for approval or to approve a variance request regarding setbacks and signs and parking and other things we've seen in the past year. What I will say is that it does allow for applicants who are facing a practical difficulty or hardship, an adequate area to request relief of the standards that are in the city code, as well as any of the zoning codes that we have as well. Looking at tonight's case, I'm looking at the requirements and the conditions that are set by the Littleton City Code, and there are 4 of them that it states that all 4 of them must be met at that time. And after questions to the applicant and staff as well, I'm not seeing that it does meet really any of them, unless anyone would like to provide any other opinions that they might have, or any other discussion on this case. Board Member Browning.
Yeah, I too want to thank the applicant for being here and for presenting the information. Thank staff for a very thorough analysis. I believe the documents presented to the board do everything they're intended to do. I feel like there's sufficient information. And while it is very tempting to say, okay, this is a great example of taking an existing situation, reducing the square footage from one amount to another amount that almost makes it to the criteria, but not quite. That part is intriguing to me, certainly, and going in the right direction. But I also feel that the board has a duty to uphold a staff analysis and recommendation. So I think that's pretty much all I had.
One quick comment.
Vice Chair Jana.
On the ground sign, you said that that wasn't part of the calculations.
So the ground sign was, the total face was part of the calculations that led them to the non-conforming. It's the gas pump signs that are not part of that calculation.
Yeah. Well, why I ask is I'm listening to our citizen comments with regard to the overall signage. And on the ground sign, I'm just looking at the possibility of reducing some of those lower signs that indicate car wash, and I can't remember.
Polar pop.
Yeah, pop and stuff like that. If we reduce that either by eliminating one panel or or reducing the size of both panels? Would that get us closer to conformance?
That is possible. I will say that with some of these sign cabinets, one of the reasons they are, it's difficult to speculate the steps it would take to reduce the sign area, just with the mechanical issues or the electrical on the interior. So you might end up with some vacant spaces. It's one that, it's difficult to hypothesize the structure of that, but it is possible, but it's hard to come to a definitive
So
conclusion.
what you're saying is that there would be a major structural change to that
Potentially.
sign to be,
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends. It's one that the applicant could potentially pursue, but it might also be a fairly costly to go forward with that option.
okay, why I ask is that it looks to me like those would be two candidates to reduce the square footage.
That is
as
a
well as
possibility.
also, somebody that drives through Littleton Boulevard a lot, okay, I can see that those two lower panels would, by reducing that size, would give you more visibility into traffic at that intersection, which it's not too bad right now, but that would be certainly an advantage for the general public.
So just to add some discussion to that, I believe the minimum clearance at an intersection for a sign has to be at least 72 inches from the ground in order to see around the corner from a ground sign.
We can look into that. but-
Okay. I think that I'm pretty sure that meets this. And then looking into that bottom portion of the sign you were pointing out before, that comes out to a little more than 17 square feet. And that would be on each side, so that'd be a total of a little over 34 square feet total, which would bring not only that sign into conformance, but the entire site's sign area also into conformance as well.
And that's why I'm pointing it out. Just, I don't know if we want to propose that be looked at, or just accept it as it too hard to do.
Do we have any discussion or any additional discussion from any of the board members? If there's no further discussion, I will call for a motion. It's any of you guys.
No.
Or would we like to continue discussion on this?
Propose that we accept the proposal as presented.
There are several proposed
There are,
motions in
yeah.
your documentation.
That's on the back of the first page. There's a motion right here for approval, and one for, so that'd be on the other side right here.
Okay. Okay, then I move to approve BOA Resolution 042019 concerning the request for variance to increase the allowed sign area from 226.67 square feet to 254.56 square feet, subject to the following, and there's no subject to the following,
It's on the back side.
as is.
Does he have to read in number 2 as well?
If he's approving with conditions, then he would need to list what those conditions are.
Okay. So we have a motion for approval of this case. Do we have a second? If we do not have a second for this motion, I'll either call for a second for this motion or call for a new motion.
I'd like to give a new motion.
Board Member Johnson.
I could see approval with conditions that, as was stated, the amount can be reduced on the sign and the emblems off the canopies. I think that would get under the maximum. And if that can be accomplished, I'd say we could go with that. That was how many square feet?
17 on each side.
So that seems like a total that would accomplish that. So if that could be done, I could go along with approving it.
So we have a motion on the table for approval with the condition that the ground sign be reduced by 17 square feet
Yeah. I think that's what,
to bring it into 17 square feet on each face, so 34 square feet.
yeah. So it's not even that much.
Okay.
But that it could be reduced to accomplish the goal.
Okay,
So if both sides are considered, it's probably shaving a foot and a half.
if there's
Bottom.
just a quick question for legal. If there's a condition that would negate the necessity for a variance request, is that something that the board should move forward in doing, or how would, if there's any sort of guidance in this scenario?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things. One is that you can approve it with whatever conditions you deem appropriate. If they choose not to do that, then there's remedies to pursue independent of the board. So I think the appeal is to council on this decision. So if they think that whatever your conditions are, they go to council, they could ask council to remove the conditions and approve it anyway. Or they could, seek court saying that your conditions are unreasonable and pursue them so that you're not absolutely the last word. So I think that if you wanted to put those conditions, you could. Obviously, if they came in and said, to staff that they were going to shave off, one of those bottom signs like the one that Pop or, and reorganize that, then staff would have said you're under the limit and would have approved it, and we wouldn't be here. So,
Right.
I think you can go either way, but I think if you approve it with those conditions to bring it into conformity, then the applicant would have appeal mechanisms that they could pursue.
Okay. Did you get all that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good with it.
So we have a motion for approval with conditions. I'll call for a second. Seeing no second on this motion, I'll call for a new motion, if there is one. Mr. Browning?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to deny BOA Resolution 04-2019 concerning a request for a variance to increase the allowed sign area from 226.67 square feet to 254.56 square feet. The foregoing denial is based on the findings that the proposed work does not meet all of the criteria, Section 1017.711 of the City of Littleton Code.
We have a motion for denial by Board Member Browning. Do we have a second? Am I allowed to second? Then I will second that motion, and we'll push this to a vote. At this time, if there's no other discussion on this motion, then I will call for the vote to be placed on the board for the motion to deny Resolution 04-2019.
The vote is 4 in favor. The motion to deny carries unanimously.
Okay, so vote in. Okay. So the vote was for denial, passed 4-0, and that will end this case. That motion does carry. The variance request at BOA 04-2019 resolution has been denied. We'll move on to our next case, which is case number VAR 19-0005. Let's see. And this is a variance to request an increase to the allowed sign area from 224.7 square feet to 238.7 square feet. and this is at 6857 South Broadway. We'll begin with a presentation by staff, a follow-up presentation by our applicant, and we will then open up the floor to anyone wanting to comment during public hearing, and Mr. Onsager, take us away.
Absolutely. So this is for Resolution 05-2019 for a sign area variance. This is going to be almost identical to our other site, the consideration, so blink and you might miss the minor details. This one is a lot sign area of 224.7 square feet to 238.7, and I would just request that I be able to move quickly through this in case.
Absolutely.
So, in this one, the main difference is the ground sign is a little bit less non-conforming, still non-conforming, resulting in 210.7 square feet. And then they, again, are reducing the overall size of the sign area. Difference in the sign, so it is missing the other kind of advertising components or the other things that make the other one bigger. Awnings and wall sign. And then, again, the criteria staff is identical to the Resolution 04-2019.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions for staff? So I do have a couple questions. So on this one, the same considerations for non-conforming sign for the ground sign.
Correct.
It just happens to be a little bit smaller this time. Does that affect everything on the sign, including the price sign?
That is correct.
So the price sign, if we can just bring up a picture of that, it looks like, and I don't know how city staff measures the price sign. Is it just where the red numbers are, or is it the entire blue area with the red numbers?
I think it would be the, per the sign, it's the total part of that, but we would review it again, but it would need to conform with the 25 square foot max.
Okay, so I got that at 27.88 square feet on that, so a little bit over that.
Yep.
Would that be part of this variance request, or is that part of the non-conformity of the sign since the price sign seemed to be the same size before?
I think we would consider that probably part of the non-conformity in the
Okay.
reface, just based on the area in which they are refacing that portion of the cabinet.
All right, great. And then same goes, I think this one was underneath the 25-foot height as well, so.
Yep.
All right.
The other difference, I think, between the two sites is just this one doesn't have necessarily that other flexibility for removing other components of that cabinet. It's a bit more
Right.
set in its dimensions.
But similar to the last case, it's not necessarily this sign that's causing the overage. Because this is a non-conforming sign, it would be allowed to be refaced as it currently stands. It's the additional signage that's being removed and replaced, not just refaced, correct?
Correct. And the other difference is, whereas the other site had 4.5 square feet remaining, this site has 14 feet remaining in their allowed square footage.
Great. That's all I have. Unless the board has any other questions for staff. Thank you very much, Mr. Onsager. At this time, I would like to call our applicant up, Ms. Croston. No presentation for this one? Okay. So at this time, I will now open public comment for case number VAR 19-0005 at 7:24 p.m. tonight. And looking at the list, I do not see any names on this list, so I'll ask one more time if there's anyone who would like to speak during public comment for case number VAR 19-0005 to please step forward. You may. Please state your name.
My name is still Pam Chadbourne, and I live a block and a half from here. Thanks for your prior vote, and I guess my comments are the same without the merit of the historic corridor, but this is a pretty old intersection in Littleton, and the signage here matters. It sets a tone, and it's right by a park. Again, I ask you to respect the staff's finding and return us back to a character that establishes Littleton. Lots of people drive past this site every day. The traffic on Broadway is famous and is only going to grow worse. The size of the signs establishes, it's one of the ways that establishes an environment of a city. And you can tell different cities by the signs. It's not always that little gateway sign that is so important to some politicians or people who care about that. You can tell a city by the signs that are in it. And so, again, allowing larger signs that push advertising create a feeling in a city. And you can tell the difference. If you go on Colorado Boulevard, you can definitely tell the difference from it to Littleton. So again, I'm going to ask you for one thing, just enforce the rules for everyone. That's what cities should do. And then keep our character by enforcing our code as well. That creates our brand, our label, by keeping these sizes a certain size. And again, well, actually, I didn't say this before, but I'm not sure. I appreciate the feeling that we have for trying to help applicants. But in this case, I think they have options. They have a lot of options. They've got resources, and they can solve this. Please vote to uphold the staff's finding and deny the variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone on the board have any questions for our citizen, Ms. Chadbourne?
Yes, I do.
Vice Chair Jenna.
Other than your concern about just kind of the general use of signage, that that it sounds to me like you were very specific with regard to the last case, but for this case, I'd like to know what you really object to in this one, and what you'd recommend.
Again, I don't feel that it's the public's place a lot of times to tell applicants what to do. They have the play space, they know the rules, and there's a flow down of requirements from the city and then the vendors in the city who play by those rules. And they have the privilege and the freedom in the United States to play within that play space that the city establishes. So I think I've come to a lot of meetings over the years, and I've seen boards struggle with trying to pick solutions, and I'm quite convinced that I have seen a couple where the board established conditions that were worse for the applicant than what they wanted. I'm not sure it's the public's place to specify how to solve the problem for the applicant. They're the ones in the best position to know within the constraints the city gave them, which they know. And again, this is a nationwide chain. I'm sure they have worse constraints than other cities and can deal with this situation. Does that?
Why I'm asking is that I'd like to have your feedback and input, and other than a position of saying I just wanted to stay within the confines of the city code. I was just wondering whether or not you just have something really special, other than a general feeling that it should be in compliance.
Well, I think it's a flow down of requirements, and the city is setting one requirement. Then the different vendors get to choose. I like that freedom, and I am not a Circle K franchisee, so I am not familiar with the design parameters. I'm going to tell you, having worked in an engineering context, I really believe that there are people who can solve this. I'm not sure any of us here are them. The people who know that are the Circle K folks, and boy, they're free to do that.
My point is, I'd like to see what you envision to be an improvement.
Just living within the play space. the city has a square footage requirement. Just ask them to live within it. They've got, 4 different places they can adapt their signage to. And I'm sure that there's different cost values for each one of those.
I think that you've exceeded your 3 minutes,
Okay.
so.
Thanks for asking, though. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll ask one more time if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak during public hearing for case VAR 19-0005. Seeing none, I will now close the public comment for this case at 7:30 p.m. At this time, I will begin the discussion of this case, adding any general comments for the benefit of other board members, or to give the opportunity of the board to ask any additional questions to either the applicant or to staff. No. So, okay, so I did have one question. In the packet for this case, I was looking through the application, and it looks like it's the application for the 1599 West Littleton Boulevard. Was it just the same application for both requests, or were there separate applications?
That is correct. It is basically the same narrative for both.
Okay.
There might have been a second one inputting that I don't know if it was ever found. So we considered them the same because there's basically the same request.
Okay, thank you. I did have one question for our applicant then, if you'd like to come up and answer it. Looking at the criteria for this one, it's the same criteria as the last case. So I will just ask you in this hearing regarding this specific piece of property along Broadway, if there's any special circumstances or conditions that exist on the site that would necessitate the extra signage that's being asked for on this site.
Nothing different than the other site.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion by the board, I will be looking for a motion. That's on the.
Okay, then I move to approve the BOA resolution 05-2019, considering a request for variance to increase the allowed area from 224.7 square feet upward to 238.7 square feet, period.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Jenna for approval of this case. Do we have a second? If there is no second, I will call for either more time for a second or for a different motion to be put forward.
We'll go ahead and move to deny. Johnson?
Board Member Johnson.
That along with this, to deny the increase of the size. My personal opinion, this could have been solved before it got here, so that's why I moved to deny it.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Johnson for denial of this case. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Board Member Browning. So at this time, if there's any discussion about the motion on the table for denial, if there's no discussion, I will call for a vote. If you can please vote on the voting board behind us at this time.
The vote is 4 in favor. The motion to deny carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. The vote 4-0. This variance request has been denied. Moving on in our agenda, further comments and reports, we will look to our Community Development Director for any comments or reports tonight.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Henninger. I'm the Community Development Director here in Littleton. I have not met all of you, so thank you for your service to the City of Littleton and volunteering, and I look forward to working with you. Typically, you'll see Mike Sutherland at this meeting, but he is on vacation for the next few days. Just to give you an update of what's going on in community development, lots. There's lots of exciting things going on here at the city. The biggest one being Envision Littleton that continues to move along on schedule. We've had great community input and we'll continue to have that. You will see us more and more at the events that we have going on in the city throughout the summer. We are moving forward with an existing or the future character map. So if you want more information on that, I encourage you to go to envisionlittleton.org. Yes. To participate in that. We have our third speaker series. If you have not had an opportunity to go on our Vision Littleton site to listen to our other speaker series, they are fascinating and very thought-provoking. So I encourage you to do that. But our next one is next Wednesday, when we will have Brett Keast here from the Kendall Keast Collaborative, our consultants that are helping us through this process. So he will be speaking specifically on character and how Littleton now has the title of the most muddled character out there. So it will be a great talk, so I encourage you to attend that. RSVP is required, so hop online and do that. Besides that, we're moving forward, doing some river corridor planning. We do have a development application in for the Santa Fe Mineral Corner. So that will probably be coming to public hearing sometime in the late summer. We are working with RTD and other regional partners and addressing the congestion at Santa Fe and Mineral. I don't know if any of you had the pleasure of sitting through many light cycles.
Night.
But we are working and meeting with a lot of regional partners on that to see what we can do, as well as the developer to the south. Besides that, we have about 50 active cases right now on the development side, and are in the process of hiring a new planner to assist us with all those cases. So if you have any questions or feedback or anything, I'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to email or call anytime.
Great, thank you very much. Anything from our community development staff?
I passed my AICP test on Tuesday.
Hey, congratulations.
Quick note, I am in the pilot program, so it'll still be another year before I'm fully certified, but
So AICP candidate
one,
then.
I am a candidate.
Yes.
But the test is out of the way.
Sounds good, congratulations. Any comments or reports from any board members? No, nothing from the chair either. So I'd like to thank all our board members, staff, as well as the citizens who came to offer their comments tonight for their time. If there's no other business for the board at this time, I will now adjourn the May 16th, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment. Thank you very much.